Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Daebak podcast, where we do a deep dive into the classic Korean dramas that have won over generations of fans across decades and around the world. Today we're discussing My Lovely Samson, the 2005 drama that was one of the biggest K-drama hits ever and that launched the careers of Hyun Bin and Kim Sun-ah. I'm one of your hosts, Elisa, also known as the Bollywood Newbie on Twitter, and I'm joined by Melanie of Pardesi Reviews on YouTube.
Hello.
Say hi, Melanie. Yes, and Vicky of That Vicky Girl, also on YouTube.
Hello.
And Catherine of TotallyFilmy.com.
Hi, everyone.
So we are very excited to reach episode 2 of our podcast. And I know we've been incredibly gratified by our initial response. Quite a lot of people have already listened to the podcast, and we are very happy that it's been something you guys are interested in. And specifically about our first episode on Coffee Prince, we did get some very detailed feedback from a couple of our listeners that I wanted to share with you today. First up is Faz Begum on Twitter. And she said, Coffee Prince was my first K-drama and I loved it. So of course I had to listen to this podcast. It was a fun listen, although I did think you spoke over each other a bit, so I missed some things. I liked the character of Hansung, and I didn't think he was manipulative, though. Also, I was reminded of the time that I nearly canceled Bollywood Newbie for saying mean things about Gong Yu's face. That was me. I own that. And then finally, I hadn't realized Yuju was hated online, although I suppose it makes sense with all the misogynists around who would have a woman hung, drawn, and quartered for less than cheating on a boyfriend. I really liked her, though, despite her cheating ways. Not sure what that says about me. Well, I also really liked Yuju, so I'm with you on the bench of I don't know what that says about me. So thank you for the lovely comments, and I know that we will try our hardest not to talk over each other, but we all have a lot to say. Melanie looking very skeptical. I wish you guys had a visual of Melanie going, yeah, right, we're totally going to talk over each other. We will do our best. And also, I apologize for saying mean things about Gong Yu, and I swear I won't do it again. And Melanie will keep me honest, and so will Vicky, because they love him.
Yes.
They're like, shut up, Elisa, how dare you? Next, we want to shout out Ksenia on Twitter, who wrote us an entire note on the episode, which touched us very much. And I'm going to share some of her thoughts. Elisa had a point about Gong Yu and the main romance in Goblin. I have a lot to say about it, so that's something we may want to touch on in future episodes. Great point that some K-dramas do require a second viewing to build a fuller picture of them, and that works for K-movies as well. It is actually admirable how K-movies and K-dramas have always been on entirely different planes regarding explicitness of showing relationships' physicality, considering how conservative the core Korean society still is about those things. Now, I think that's a really interesting comment given what we're about to talk about today, right, with regards to Kim Samson, which is pretty frank about physical matters, and we're going to get into that in a few minutes. And finally, I'd say the Coffee Prince romance gets sold not only because Gong Yu was hot AF, but because the chemistry with Yoon Hae, I'm really bad at pronouncing things, was phenomenal, and it's her acting that Gong Yu had to level up with, and that helped him shape Hong Gyul's character. And that's actually a really good point. I think we all acknowledge that we spent too much time talking about the boys, and we did not give her enough credit for her role in making that and making Coffee Prince great.
Sorry,
go ahead.
I'm talking over you. Actually, I just finished The Princess Hours. With her in it as well. And you can see the shift from that character to her Coffee Prince character. So just to add to the fact that, man, she did such an amazing job.
Yeah.
I think she, the writer had a very good point in that
sometimes it's not just the sparkly chemistry between two actors, but also the level of one can make another actor really raise their game. And I think Coffee Prince is a really good example of where you had really all four kind of forcing each other to kind of level up and bring their A game every day. And it's a really good example of that.
I agree. And it's a shame she's not been working much recently, except for variety shows, because she's very good. Speaking of working, the next part of this comment, and it was a really long, detailed note, which I really appreciate. So I don't think Kim Dong-wook isn't getting enough work. He's been equally busy doing dramas and movies for years, and he's a recent Daesang winner. I wouldn't worry about him. So Catherine, you don't have to worry about your favorite. He's doing very well.
And as I said to you, I think my comment was misphrased. But what I really mean is I want more of him on my screen.
He is delightful. He's great. And finally, and I think we're going to have a very lively discussion about this. I know I'm being mean here, so never mind, but the struggle of English speakers pronouncing some Korean words and names while not having the phonetical equivalents in your own language is funny. Also because the romanization is often misleading. And I know I'm going to turn this over to you guys, because you guys actually have far more experience struggling with foreign language pronunciation than even I do.
Yeah, the struggle is real.
Yeah. Vicky here. I struggle with every word known to man. English, my own mother tongue, I struggle with. So that's just something that, unfortunately for me, it's hard, but I do try as much as I can to get better. So if at any point of this podcast I do mispronounce a name, a word, I promise you it's not with bad intentions. I just really can't speak. And I will work on it. So I just really hope that people also understand and, give us a little bit of leeway, because it's not, it's not something that we speak on a daily basis, and it's not our mother tongue. And so it can be really hard to say certain words when you've not spoken it for like your whole life. So I do, yeah.
And it's a good point that the romanization of words can't really convey the real sound of it. And sometimes we're just reading something that we've never heard in real life, and we're making the best that we can. And I will just say the same thing that I do on my Indian cinema YouTube channel, is that I want to do better. I want to learn. So if I do mispronounce something, I hope someone would make a note to correct me and let me know.
Yeah. And I just also wanted to point out that all of us are dealing with multiple languages because we are primarily consumers of non-English films. And in India alone, we're watching films in Telugu, Tamil, Malayalam, and sometimes even more languages than that. And so it's really challenging. And I know for me personally, I hope people understand that I have a passion for this content. I love learning about new cultures. I make the sincere best effort I can to pronounce things correctly, but it's rough. It's very, very rough. Literally things like where your tongue is in your mouth and how wide, and where the sound originates. Is it in the front? Is it in the back? I've had to learn a lot more about this than I ever expected. And even then you don't necessarily get it right. And so we do the best we can.
I've been studying Korean for a couple of years now, and I'm still not doing very well. And I have mentioned to you guys that sometimes I will stick names and words that I need into Korean script, because they're right. The romanization is non-standard, and it sometimes it's a close approximation. But the other, as you've pointed out too, we spend our lives in like several languages. I work in French and English all day, and there are moments where my lines blur a lot. So I
grew up speaking Spanish, and I'm not a greatly fluent in Spanish, at least in speaking. I have what's called receptive bilingualism, which is you can understand it, but you don't necessarily can speak it very well. And I know Vicky is in a similar situation, probably.
Yes, very much so.
Yeah. So anyway, this is like a really extended way of us saying we try our best and we love you. We love the language and we love learning about it. And we are sincerely making the best effort we can with regard to pronunciation. So, it's challenging, but we'll continue to work on getting it right. So now I'd like to do a quick intro to my lovely Samson, also known as My Name is Kim Samson. It was made in 2005. This is going to be the oldest drama that we discuss on the podcast. It tells the story of Samson, a woman who is overweight and 30 years old and has been cheated on and dumped by the boyfriend she'd hoped to marry. She lands a job as a pâtissier, French baker, at a restaurant owned by Jin Heon, who is a cold and arrogant chaebol with a secret tragedy in his past. In order to get out from his mother's demands that he go on matchmaking dates, Jin Heon proposes a dating contract with Samson in exchange for 50 million won, which she needs to pay a family debt. Even though they're only supposed to be fake dating, sparks fly. But then Jin Heon's ex-girlfriend returns from a 3-year absence in the US and all hell breaks loose. This drama was a huge hit in Korea with an average viewership rating of 37% and a peak rating of almost 50% for the finale, which makes it one of the highest rated Korean dramas of all time.
That's just insane. Can I just have to interject there? That is just insane.
Half the country watched the finale, which is remarkable. It also won numerous awards, including the Baeksang Arts Awards Grand Prize for TV and the Grand Prize at the MBC Drama Awards for Kim Sun-ah. But despite all the success this show had in Korea, it wasn't really part of the Hallyu wave the way Coffee Prince and other shows that were aired 5 years later. It was just a little too early to really enjoy that international attention and success. However, the show seems to be having a revival recently because of Crash Landing on You and this huge interest in Hyun Bin. And I know that on the K-drama subreddit, there's been a flurry of posts reviewing My Lovely Samson, and it's people who discovered it, because of Crash Landing on You. So the stars of this drama are Kim Sun-ah as Samson, and she famously gained 15 pounds to play the role. Hyun Bin as Jin Heon, also called Sam Shik in the series, and I greatly prefer calling him Sam Shik. And he was only 23 years old at the time that he made this. And I like to refer to him as fetus Hyun Bin in this because he's so young. We have, it's true. We have Jung Ryeo-won, I'm sure I mangled that, I'm sorry, as Heejin, the rival for Hyun Bin's affections, and finally Daniel Henney as Henry, the gorgeous doctor in love with Heejin. And Henney is an American actor who mostly speaks English in the drama, which is interesting, especially because the actress who played Heejin is fluent in English. There's actually big chunks of the drama that we don't need subtitles for. That was nice. Change of pace. So one of the themes of this podcast series is what makes a classic a classic. So what do you guys think made this show a classic?
It's unforgettable. It's just, there's something about Hyun Bin's character in this drama that it sort of reminds me of the arrogance of Boys Over Flowers, where it just sort of has that same sparks flying dynamic. But conversely, it's not just, this spunky character. Like, Samson is kick ass. She kicks ass and she takes names. Like, I love her character, and I can see why this is just, that she won awards, and this has remained a classic, if nothing else, just for her characterization in this role. This was my first time, I think, ever seeing her in a drama. And, it's not going to be the last, because she's an amazing actress. One of the things, Bridget Jones' Diary had come out a few years before, where also famously, the actress gained 15 pounds for that role. And so I don't know if there was just something that they were sort of copying it. Other than that, it doesn't really have any that much similarities to Bridget Jones' Diary. I mean, I suppose that the fact that she has two men who are after her, a womanizer and, a seemingly aloof, arrogant guy. But after that, there's not many other comparisons. And I don't think that she has the same clumsy slapstick kind of quality to her character that you find with Bridget Jones. She's damn competent at her job.
Yeah.
And I love that.
Yeah, I mean, she is, as you said, a badass because she's loud. She curses like a sailor. She unabashedly loves to eat and drink. She loves sex. And she openly talks about her desires, whatever they might be. Like whatever she wants, she's upfront about what she wants. And yeah, she's really good at her job. And the character saved money to go to France and to attend the best cooking school in France in order to learn how to become a French baker. And the show really foregrounds that. And it's really clear that everybody she works with respects her. So she's very much, despite like bad things happening to her, she feels like somebody who's driving the narrative of her own life. Unlike some other heroines, even today, where they feel like they're being acted on and acted, like they're not the ones driving their own lives.
Yeah, and to like piggyback off of that note you just mentioned regarding other heroines, I really like Samson's character, just as Melanie mentioned how badass she was. I just liked how she also spoke her mind, and if she felt like no, she would just say no. Like how she communicated with, Hyun. Well, I'm gonna refer to him as Jin. Okay, Jin Heon. Jin Heon.
It's Jinon, but you can say Sam Shik because he's Sam Shik.
Sam Shik. Okay. Okay, we're gonna go with that. I feel like that one's easier. Okay, Sam Shik. Yeah, I liked how like she let her feelings like open. If she felt like she didn't want him to do something, she'd be like no. And if she felt hurt by something, she would also speak her mind. And so I just think that's not you don't often see that a lot in most of the newer shows nowadays, especially in K-drama, at least the ones I've been watching. A character like Samson is really kind of rare, and so it was really nice to see. It was really nice to visit and see that type of freshness and realness to that particular character in that show. So
I agree on that. And it's really striking how it's almost like things have regressed in terms of women's characterizations in more recent dramas. I mean, it's definitely not universal, but there's still quite a lot of, I was talking with Catherine about this, that I find a lot of the heroines in more recent dramas to be very bland and not having a lot of spark and not having a lot of crackle to their performance. And that's definitely not Kim Sana. I mean, she's just funny, magnetic, but also heartbreaking. Like the scenes where she has to be sad and really grab you, she's amazing. And she was brave to take that role, to take a role that required her to gain weight and to be vulgar.
Yeah, and I mean, there's some scenes that are also like, okay, this is the piggyback scene. Like, let's talk about it. Okay, she's gotten so drunk, and Hyunbin has to carry her home, and she pees down his back, and then she vomits down his front. Like, oh my God, I cannot imagine any modern heroine. Robin's doing that. Like,
yes.
Holy crap.
You're right.
It was so brilliant too, because the show actually subverts a lot of K-drama tropes, because it is tropey. It's like poor girl with the rich chaebol and the interfering mother-in-law and the ex-girlfriend. So like you have these tropey elements, but the way it plays out is not typical. And that's one way. And also he does the wrist grab, and she practically knocks him unconscious every time he grabs her wrist. So she's fighting him and swearing. She's cursing him out. It is hilarious.
I think what I really like about her too is like I feel she could be one of my friends or me. I'm not quite that forthright, but she feels like someone I would meet, I would go out for drinks with, that I would hang out with. And I sometimes don't get that same, even though I like some of the more, modern heroines, I don't feel that they're that real and rooted in a life that I can understand.
Totally. She feels very real. Yeah, I agree with that.
I mean, for instance, there's a modern drama that just finished, Mr. Queen. And I almost feel like they had to have her inhabited by the soul of a man to let her act in some of the ways that Samson was acting, to let her swear, to let her be forthright, to let her, I don't know, it just, to me, it was like, is this what you have to do? The show is brilliant. I love Mr. Queen, but the timing of it, of finishing watching that and getting ready for this, and I was just thinking about how Samson is so different than so many recent heroines. And, right now I'm in the middle of watching It's Okay to Not Be Okay. And the heroine of that is also extremely blunt and forthright, but she's dealing with an antisocial personality disorder. Like, she tells the hero, "You're pretty, I want you." But it's in a weird way, it's not, I don't know. It's not the same way of Samson having that, go out and get a condom because I cannot stand it. I want to jump you. Basically, I don't remember the line, but I mean, it's just like.
Well, my favorite is when they're in the hotel room and he tries to seduce her. She's like, "No, not until I lose weight." And he's like, "Well, how long do I have to wait?" And there's a hilarious exchange. And then, though, he's like, "Can't I just sleep next to you?" And she's like, "No, because I don't know if I can."
Yes.
And
yeah,
it's such a great scene and such a great portrayal of women's sexuality.
Yes.
Women want sex too.
Okay,
Who knew, right?
I cannot imagine also any modern character of them showing a scene of the hero going from store to store trying to buy condoms. Like, holy.
And it's
that
so
may
funny.
have been my favorite of the whole series.
You know what else? It's in the last episode, which is actually pretty remarkable too, right? That scene is not something you would think of as last episode material, like in a way. I don't know. I felt like it was just, which actually is a segue into something else I want to say, is that this show's really well written. It's well plotted. You don't feel like there's filler episodes. You feel like there's a complete story arc and character development that gets realized at the end for all the characters. And
yeah, I mean, the more dramas the more I really appreciate when the writers have enough material to fill 16 episodes or whatever this one was, and not have filler episodes at the end. Like, there's so many dramas now, they kind of run out of steam, and then we have to have like an entire episode of product placement and flashback scenes, to kind of pad it out to the full 6. And so you really do admire when the writers stick the landing. They really develop the characters, they make you care all the way till the end of the 16th episode.
Yeah. And I think another example of how well written this show is that the characters are all complex and there's no simple villain in this story.
Well, maybe the ex.
He's not,
I was gonna say just a little bit in the beginning, a little bit. She was kind of teetering, being a bit annoying.
Oh no, we're talking about her ex. We're talking about Samsun's ex-boyfriend.
Oh, well, him too.
He's kind of a doofus.
He's a comedy track dude, but I thought something was really interesting because even him in the first episode when he breaks up with her and she's like, "Did you ever love me?" And he's like, "I did love you once, but now the love is over." And well, what am I supposed to do about that? Yeah. And I thought, man, even this character who's just basically a horn dog, an unethical horn dog, but he's still got this really profound line to say that is actually very relevant to the themes of the story that play out, which is another thing I love about this, things that pay off down the road. So, for example, there's a scene where they go to the cable cars that are famous in Seoul, and I don't know the name of them. It takes you to some tower in Seoul, and Hyun Bin and Kim Sana are in one car and it's going up, and then Hee-jin is in the other one going down, and they pass each other, and their relationship is on the rise, and Hee-jin is receding into the past, and it's boom right there in like the first episode. It's just somebody really thought out how they were shooting this, what the themes were, what they were writing about. Another thing was that there's a lot of literary references in the story. They bring up Proust, remembrance of things past, when she has that hilarious conversation with Henry because he can't speak Korean and she can't speak English, and they're trying to talk to each other. And
I adore that scene.
Yeah, that was everything.
I absolutely adore that scene. And I love the fact that she says, she's rambling on like my professor told me I had to read this and I bought the book, but I couldn't finish it, which is like a lot of us with Proust. It's like,
yeah,
we remember the bit about the sexy cookie.
right.
And I love that.
Well, it's to her character, right? She would remember the sexy cookie, right? Of course. And then Henry buys the book and reads it. So I just thought it was really interesting, again, how things kind of play out. Like they brought it up in this conversation and then it comes up later on in the story to remind you again that this is about memory. This is about loss. This is about what happens when you are stuck in the past, when you can't move on. That's like an ongoing theme of the entire drama.
I mean, if you think about it, there's so many supporting characters who are stuck in the past. Even the little girl, his Hyun Bin's niece, ever since her parents were killed in the car accident, spoiler, she has not spoken. And it is Samson who is the one who is able to draw her out and get her to speak again. And but even Hyun Bin's mother, he is so you think, okay, it's the evil mother-in-law trope kind of thing, but when she sends Hee-jin away, it's because she's like, I can't stand to lose someone else, and you're, everything that you've gone through and you being ill, I can't go through that again. And so it wasn't just the here's some money, go away. That was kind of, I was like, that I wasn't expecting, but here is a mother who has lost her other son. And so she's just putting all her worry on Hyun Bin. Like, you have to get married. You have to, you have to grow up. You have to, she's just trying to push him along because, of all the loss she's experienced too. So I just love that there was allowed complexity for some of the other supporting characters as well.
And Hee-jin is very complex. I mean, I didn't like her as a person. I found her passive aggressive.
Same.
Yeah, I don't like her, but at the same time, she's very, very sympathetic in a lot of ways because she lost everything.
Yeah.
She had this beautiful, perfect life, and she thought she was going to marry her high school boyfriend and she was going to have this amazing career, and then bam, double tragedy. Her entire life was taken away from her, and she comes back and she's trying as hard as she can to get it all back exactly the same way as it was, with no changes, which is of course foolish.
And at one point, the long-suffering Henry says to her, "You're frozen in time. You haven't moved." And
I love
everything.
How he's. No, go ahead. Go ahead.
But everything around her has changed in those years, and she hasn't really grokked that yet.
Yeah, I love the name Long Suffering Henry because he did suffer for just some reason. It was like, dude, but he held on. He held on though. I gotta give him. I was like, wow, jeez.
Okay, it is like modern day. You're like, wait a minute, you were her doctor, and you're following her to Korea. Okay,
it was a little bit, I was like, wow, okay.
Yeah, I mean, he's actually the only character I don't like because I found him to be a Ken doll. I mean, it was like Hee-jin's consolation prize, and I was disappointed because everybody else is so fully fleshed out and realized, and he's not really. And Daniel Henney isn't a good enough actor to have given that character depth through his performance. Yeah,
he was very pretty to look at, though.
He was definitely a good.
Well, and I was trying to remember because there was a moment where he was like, oh, everyone was like, Daniel Henney, and I was like, what? Who? What? And I never really paid attention. But I guess that must be either they liked him in that drama or I don't know. I personally don't see the appeal, but that's not my taste.
Yeah, but it was kind of interesting to have a character in a Korean drama, just that someone who had been adopted to America and spoke no Korean and was coming back and trying to explore Korea. And so just that was just sort of interesting, you know. I don't
I've
know.
seen it come up in other dramas, the people who are adopted away and come back. I've seen it at least 3 times, because you have Ryan Gold from Her Private Life. Ryan Gold. We love him. We love him. And now Vincenzo.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Which is also, we're also enjoying. So yeah, but Henry, I felt like was, you know, nothing's perfect. To me, the Henry was like kind of the low point of the drama. But if that's the lowest point of the drama, then it's a really good drama.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, what was really different is, you know, frequently the other woman, the competing love interest, is made out to be really evil or conniving. And you could never say that about Hee-jin. Like you said, she was trying to recover what she had lost. And, you know, she couldn't cope with the fact of how many different things had changed. But their breakup scene, I mean, that was, I mean, it was something unlike I have seen really in any other drama. You know, just an acknowledgement of, yes, we loved each other, but we're in different places now, and I love someone else. And yet they didn't, you know, immediately part and whatever. They're just holding each other and just sorrowful about that moment. But he's just holding her while she sobs. And just the whole thing of that scene was so different than anything else.
And it was also,
Go ahead, Vicky.
Oh, I was going to say it was also in some ways realistic as well. I felt like pertaining to what was going on regarding their characters, especially because, you know, sometimes it's not always easy to let go, even when you know it's time to let go. And I think they were able to kind of portray that really well. So like you mentioned, that was a really intense scene as well. I like that.
That scene made me cry so hard. I was so, not because obviously they should have break up, right? But it was just, there was still so much love there and caring for each other, but it just wasn't going to be, you know, he had lost everything too. And he had been stuck, and he was bitter and angry and cynical and kind of taking it out. Like his mother would send him on these dates and he'd be really mean to the dates. Oh my God. And like comment on their plastic surgery, terrible things to these poor women. And then Samson came along, and she doesn't take any, and she kind of just broke through and shocked him out of what was going on. And that's what he needs now, because he's a different person. He's suffered this enormous loss. Like, what he has to have in a partner is different. But it doesn't mean he doesn't.
And the moment he tells her about that is also one of my favorites. I think they had gone to Jeju Island for I don't remember, the hotel opening or whatever it was. And they're lying together in the bed, but he lies on her stomach and he tells her, stop trying to pull in your stomach. It's soft. I like it. And that's when he's not looking her in the face, he can really tell her about his tragic backstory. And oh my gosh, that scene really affected me too. I also just thought that was one of the best scenes. I mean, it just shows Hyun Bin had it even at 23, even with horrible hair.
The terrible hair and fashion. I agree, though. That scene is amazing. And when he's also, like, when he's crying and talking, but also when he stands up and he goes to the window and talks about climbing Mount Hala. Thank you, Mount Hala. And he did it twice. He did it once with his brother, and then he did it with himself after his legs had been reconstructed after the accident. And then he tells Samson, I want you to climb it with me. And he doesn't understand what he's saying when he says that, but she understands what he's saying when he says that. You know, it's so well done. And yeah, I agree. I mean, I honestly think this is like one of his best performances. And I think Hyun Bin is much better playing a jerk ass than he is playing a straight romantic hero. He's really good in this, and he's really good in true. Secret Garden.
That's very true.
And I liked him in Crash Landing on You, but he did not have the same spark to his performance in Crash Landing on You that he has playing an asshole. So he should probably try doing that more in the future. I think that's where he really shines. He's really good at it.
Well, and I think what put me off a little bit about him, because I'm not as enthusiastic as you three, but I think what put me off about him is that's a character I don't like, no matter who's playing it. Like the rich, arrogant asshole I don't connect with. So when I decided to watch Crash Landing on You, I thought, oh, do I do this? And I'm so glad I did, because I went, hang on, he can do something different. So now that I've gone back and watched Samson again, I appreciate what he did in that a lot more this time
because
around.
it was range. He was demonstrating he can do other things. Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, that's a good perspective. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I still wish I never watched Memories of the Alhambra, and I know people will disagree with me on that, but
it wasn't good.
Yeah, I haven't heard good reports about that.
I think I only made it around halfway through the drama, and it was just a certain point in the pandemic and election stress, and I was just like, this is stressing me out more watching this. This is not helping me. I think now I could probably go back and finish it, but he was playing that rich asshole again, at least in the beginning scenes of that one. And it was kind of like, wow, that was the first time me seeing something different than Captain. But anyway, I just think it's kind of amazing, 23 years old, what he did in this drama. It must have made such an impact. I mean, to draw these audience numbers, like, it's insane.
Well, I want to give Kim Sun credit though too, because I'm sure she pulled him up, because she was so fearless in her performance, and they had fantastic chemistry with each other.
We were just watching. There was just a blooper video showing her spitting rice into his face and him having to react to that. And then, the scene breaking, it was like you get to see the filming of like she was willing to just go for it, literally do a spit take of rice right into his face. He had to, and he had to just deal with it.
But that also furthers my point of how real and raw I felt like the show was, that, in that instance, because I don't really think you would see that nowadays. I don't think any actress or actor would be willing to get rice spit on them just like that, especially now. But it really helped the craft.
Well, the other thing is the production values are very different than what we see now. And so that's another thing that makes it feel more real. I mean, we're not seeing everyone airbrushed into skin perfection.
Yes.
We're seeing some pencils or pimples. We're seeing some pores. We're seeing sweat. I don't know. It sometimes the low quality of the audio or whatever was aggravating, but it also just lends realness and a rawness.
But I think, yes, they had to deal with their technological limitations. However, the director was so good at working. Like, let's talk about the kiss scene, the first kiss scene. As everybody has a nervous breakdown. Seriously, in my opinion, the best first kiss I've ever seen in any drama.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And first of all, it takes 20 minutes. The entire scene plays out over 20 minutes. A lot of it does not have any dialogue. They're using what's called diegetic music, which means it's music in the scene. Like Hyun is playing the piano and they're singing at some point, or she's singing at one point. And it's technologically, I think it must have been challenging because the restaurant's dark at a time when cameras weren't really that great, so like setting up the shots, how they lit it, they wanted to give a sense of intimacy between these two people. You have the cameras are on tracks, so they have these tracking shots. First of all, a gorgeous tracking shot of like Sam Shik asked Samson to get food and drinks. And so she gets up and he's playing the piano and the camera follows her in silence as she's going through the kitchen and getting snacks. Yeah. And
it just shows her competence and this is her, I don't know, just like, this is her realm, this is her realm. And she doesn't just slap something together, like she makes it beautiful and puts
Right.
figure into it. But it just the sufficiency of motion that was also amazing.
And also, like when she gets out a cake, and it's a cake she's made, and she slices it and presents it, and yeah, it's like she is so comfortable in the kitchen. She is so in charge back there. And then she's got this tray, and then she comes out and she pauses and she stares into the room where Hyun Bin is playing the piano, and she gets this amazing look on her face, you know, where she's gazing on him, and you just know all these thoughts are going through her head about how she feels about him and not sure what's going on emotionally for herself, right?
The tension in that scene, I must say, I was very wow. I was anticipating. Like I was every scene I was just looking. I was like, okay. Because I didn't expect the kiss to happen, but then because of how they were conversing and how everything was going, I was like, something's gonna happen, you know. And so when it did, I was like,
yeah. So the kiss, so like they spend time talking, and the talking is about, she's talking about her childhood and how come she loves and loves the name Heejin, and at first he's insulting her because that's how he does things, but then after a while he starts to he's behaving towards her more respectfully and more
they get comfortable, and it sets the mood.
Yeah, and then it almost feels like the circle is tightening. The circle is tightening through that whole. I think it might literally be happening with the camera. The camera's coming in closer,
yeah, I felt that way. Oh my gosh. Okay. Yes.
Right, and then he wipes the cream off her lip, and they both go, oh. They were like, whoa, we just felt something we weren't expecting, you know. And then she starts rambling about something immaterial, and because they don't know what to say to each other. And then finally he's like, should we go? And she's like, yeah. And then she trips and he grabs her, which is also like a K-drama trope. Oh yeah, right? The girl tripping and the guy grabbing her. But the way it plays out is he grabs her and pulls her in. And then as he bends in for a kiss, and then he says, you don't have your eyes closed this time. And she kisses him first. And I was like, hell yeah.
I was like, this is what we deserve. Yes.
And then he looks shocked, right? And then she leans in, and then she goes back for more. She puts her arms around him and really kisses him.
And oh man. I was like, wow, I love this. I need a lead that's just, yes, perfect.
They, and there were tongues involved, not to be gross, but you know what I mean? Like it was a real kiss. It wasn't those stupid, dry,
fish
eye.
She said fish eye.
Fish eye.
Yeah, I'm sure we all know. We all know.
And at first he's hesitant, and then you see him realize that he's really attracted to her, and he leans in, and the kiss goes out for a long time. It's a makeout session.
I was blushing a little bit. Oh my gosh. Whoa. Okay.
It is just a beautiful scene, and allowing intimacy to grow slowly, bit by bit by bit, which is just
conversation. Yes.
Yeah.
I love that.
And conversation and sitting close to each other on the piano bench. It just was so beautifully done. It's just one of the, like you say, it's one of the all-time best first kisses ever. The fact that she was the one that kisses him.
Exactly.
Epic. Absolutely epic.
Also,
and totally in character for Samson, right? Like she is honest about what she wants. She's honest about what she desires.
And also, though, I love that she breaks away from him and shoves him, because she's just like, I don't know, what did I just do? Like, she sort of shocked herself.
Yeah.
And then she goes out in the rain, and then she's running outside the restaurant, and you see Sam Shik through the windows as she's running by.
And he's like processing everything in, like, wait, I might like this girl. And then it's like,
it's just so amazing. It's so amazing. And
I like too how it connects with the fact that very early on we see a lot of her internal fantasies. And it's a device that I'm in some dramas I find it a little manipulative, but I think here we get a really good sense of what's going on in her head, like that where she's imagining dancing with the crew at the restaurant, and imagining putting the hot pepper flakes in the ex-boyfriend's engagement cake, and she doesn't do it, and this is the moment where she is acting on something internal, and we're actually seeing her do it. I just it's
that's
so
a good
well,
point.
yeah, it's so well done how we already we've seen her fantasy life, we've seen how she copes with stuff and emotions, and then the emotions, and then she can't cope with it and she runs away.
Yeah.
And I think that the show is constantly foreshadowing things in a really great way. Like in the first episode, he goes, "What kind of man do you want?" And she's like, "I want a man who takes me to his family and friends and says, 'This is my woman,'" right? And then next episode, he does that. And I mean, they're fake dating. But like when his mother starts to abuse her, he defends her, and his defense is sincere. And I think that's what's really interesting, because like when he's talking to Samson, he's insulting her and being a jerk ass, and they have this bantering relationship going on. But then when his mother is being abusive, he's like, "She's way better than all those other girls you introduced me to, you know?" And there's a specific line that I wrote down because I thought it was great. "She knows what she's supposed to be doing in this world and how she should be living." And I think that really it's a really great encapsulation of her character and how she moves through the world.
Yeah.
What is that line she says when his mother asks her about their relationship, and she says something about, I want to feed him the cake I make. I want him to be the first person to eat the cake I make. It's like so sweet. And it's like the cake is something so important to her.
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting because very early on, when they're still doing the enemies to lovers trope and they're in the fighting stage, but yet, you know, the way they think about each other is coming through in these ways. You know, so, and like having it appear so early on in the show, and then having it pay off down the road, like the way he describes her to her ex, and Chady, the fiance of her ex, you know, he's like, "She's not pretty, she has an honest face, she's a little bit fat, but being fat isn't a bad thing. When you hug her, she's soft like cotton candy." I mean, you know, it's like he's sort of like kind of working it out for himself. Does that make any sense? Like he's sort of like, this is not the person I should be with.
I mean, they've really set her up to, Hee-jin is unnaturally thin. I mean, she's sort of set up to be, she's too thin because she has stomach cancer, you know, but I mean, she's so extraordinarily thin compared to Samson. I don't know. We have to talk about the other big kiss moment that I still cannot get over. And that is when she thinks they're done. And I think I am remembering right, and she's trying the blind dates again, and he grabs her and he drags her into the men's restaurant and kisses her in front of the urinals. Like, what the ever living hell?
Love that scene, though. I love that scene. I think it's great.
But it connects to how they met.
Correct.
Yes, exactly. There's so much mirroring, and I get that, but I still get, I'm just thinking to myself, would there be any other K-drama made in the last few years where someone would get kissed in front of a urinal?
It's so funny too, because they're arguing and men keep coming in to pee, and then they see what's going on and they exit immediately. Oh my God. Oh, but but again, it's a call out because like the very first time they meet, she goes into the wrong bathroom to cry because she's caught her boyfriend with another woman, and then he comes into the bathroom and is like, "Are you a pervert?" knocking on her stall and being mean to her.
I love that too, because that is such an ugly cry scene. And again, today, it happens, but it's much more rare. I mean, her mascara is down her face and she's puffy and she's miserable. And it's just like I would cry.
Relatable.
It's so raw and real, right? And yeah, and I mean, Kim Sana is really brave in her willingness to like just be ugly on camera. Not that she's ugly, she's not, but you know what I mean? Like to just be
to not be picture perfect.
right, even
Or,
by the standards of the time, not to be the dainty girl.
The pretty tears that fall straight down.
Right.
Or the one eye drop, the one that drops.
Oh, God. I mean, and we made a similar observation for Yoon Eun-hye. Is that how you pronounce her name? In Coffee Prince, that she was also fearless and willing to not wear makeup and have a bad haircut.
Considering she was an idol as well, like, you know, that was a big deal, actually. Like, yeah.
So kudos to the actresses who are willing to drop all that crap and portray something more real.
I mean, well, there's one thing that I love about Hyun Bin's character. Not only does he not want her to change, he doesn't want her to lose weight or anything. He also is adamant that he loves her name. And it's a constant thing that she wants to change her name to Jen. And he literally tears up her application or whatever when change her name. I guess her name means something like third daughter. And I was wondering what really would be the old-fashioned equivalent in English, or to be like she's Gertrude or something like that.
That was exactly the name that popped into my head. But yeah, it's and she says something about her grandfather was angry that it was another daughter, so just named her Samson.
That's what's so offensive about the name. It's not just that it's old-fashioned, it's so dismissive that he just basically named her an object instead of giving her a real name. And it's like a really good segue into something I wanted to talk about, which is how women are valued and devalued in the society and how that plays out in this story, because Samson is constantly reminded by everyone that she's fat and old and the clock is running out and you have very little time left to get married. She's only freaking 30 years old.
I was gonna say 30. Like, what?
Yeah. And she's not fat. That's the other thing.
Exactly.
But even her own family, even her mother and sister talk to her that way. Her sister's like, I pick Heejin over you. I mean, it's just this constant. So for her to even have a dream, right? And when she talks to Hyun Bin, this is in an early scene where they're in the subway and she's like, there isn't a job I haven't had. I worked every job I could to raise the money to go to pursue this dream. Nobody ever, except for him in the story, says, good for you. You had a dream and you achieved it. You are really talented. You were brave to go alone to a foreign country to learn this where you didn't speak the language. I mean, she just never gets acknowledged for that by anyone except for him. And that's why one of the things I wanted to talk about is like, is he an irredeemable asshole in this story? And the reason I bring it up is because people online, when they talk about this drama, some people hate it because they say, oh, well, she's a doormat. She let him walk all over her. What? And yeah, I know I don't agree, obviously. And also he's terrible. He's a toxic male. And why does she love him? He's such a jerk. So I wanted to talk about this a little bit.
Wow.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, no, I see it online all the time. I did a lot of reading on message boards before we did this episode.
Yeah, I've heard the same things before I watched the drama as well. That was always the take. And okay, in some ways, yes, I can see why people would say that, especially in the terms of that particular portion where he was kind of like torn between his ex and Samson, where it was like he's here and then he's not, he's there and he's not. It was a bit annoying, because I kind of imagined if I had somebody like that in real life, there's no way I would, I mean, let's be real. It was kind of, it was very annoying at some point, because it was like, okay, like I get that they have this history, but he also tells her, like, he wants to be with her, but yet he's with the other girl. Like, it was just kind of it was kind of a bit off-putting, I would say, that particular portion. But I also do understand, like, because you made a really good point, which I think you touched on again, regarding why, they were still, it was hard for him to kind of let go of the ex in some ways, and he was still frozen in that particular relationship. And so I feel like Samson was kind of the person who brought that, you know, him out of that shell. But yeah, I was a bit put off by his character at some point, but I also understood it towards the end.
The episode where he kicks over the bicycle is the worst. It's the lowest point of the character. He is such a in that episode.
In real life, I mean, let's ask yourself, in real life, I probably would have, I don't know.
I would have keyed his car or like thrown the bike at him or something. I don't know. It's really bad. That episode, he did not shine in that episode.
He did not.
But you know, I see him as a Rochester in Jane Eyre character, because if you read Jane Eyre, Rochester is the worst sometimes. He does some. However, he's the only person who sees Jane Eyre as someone worth getting to know and to talk, and sees her strengths and admires her and takes an interest in her. And she's somebody who is poor, grew up in an orphanage, is ugly, you know, like is somebody that society utterly overlooks. And he sees her, he sees who she is. And I think it's a similar thing where Jinon behaves like a jerk. At the same time, he sees Samson differently than anybody else he sees her worth. He sees that she's a strong, admirable. He even says at one point, he goes, I really admire that about her. I wish I was something like that.
And it also ties into what you're willing to, I guess, handle. And I feel like that's probably the perceptions that people had of him, whereas they probably thinking like in real life, in some ways that would kind of be, I guess, gaslighting and a bit of a toxic tendencies, in the sense where here is this person who kind of makes you feel like, you know, you're the world, but yet he's just really an asshole. And it's like, so it's kind of like you're kind of torn in between, you know, how he makes you feel versus how he really is. And so I think that was just kind of maybe the point that a lot of people were making, where they kind of felt like, you know, while he was great, he also wasn't all that great in that sense.
Those episodes are really hard when he really didn't know his own heart, and he couldn't, and he was unnecessarily cruel. But I kind of view it as he was a character that had a lot of growing up to do, right? I mean, he really, you felt like he did go through a lot of change and a lot of growth by the end of the drama.
And that's why I understood him at the end. That's why I was wondering why, when people say, I understood why he was the way he was throughout watching it all together. I was like, okay, I get it.
Yeah, I mean, when you think he was only 24 when the accident happened,
exactly,
and he was responsible, or he thinks he's responsible for killing his brother and sister-in-law and best friend, and so that's a lot for a 24-year-old to assimilate, right? Yeah, and he himself was very severely injured, so he had to rehabilitate himself from that.
Yep. I think too, for me, there's a lot of recognition in this drama that life is messy, relationships are messy. They're not perfect. I mean, I've been with my husband, 27 years now, and trust me, it's not perfect for either of us. But you work through it, you talk through it. Sometimes you yell at each other and then you walk away and you come back and go, okay, maybe I was out of line. And I think there's a lot of that going on in this drama. That
I agree.
There's forward and there's back. There's forward and there's back.
I mean, and actually that's reflected in the ending, which is controversial. And some people didn't like the ending because it's an open ending. You don't get a marriage at the end. Samson's bakery that she opens is struggling and they don't know if it's going to survive or not. She's been trying to get pregnant, which is the other thing. She's trying to get pregnant without being married. Let's see that play out in the drama now. And she's not pregnant yet. So like everything is up in the air. And like the final speech or the final monologue from Samson is about accepting that, about saying, I can't control what's going to happen. We could break up. But I'm going to continue loving him. I'm going to continue making my cakes, and I'm going to continue living the best life I can, because you know that's what you do. And it's such a gorgeous ending. I freaking loved it. And you know, honestly, this show, I watched it at a time when things were very dark with regards to COVID and the election and there was the Black Lives Matter protest going on. It was just really, really grim, like where my husband and I were crying several times a day, literally, like just bursting into tears. And I watched this and it felt like a healing drama because it was just so wise about life and about loss and how do you continue to live after a great loss. So it really touched me.
Yeah. And yeah, this was probably the first open-ended ending that I actually like because I usually hate those. However, this made sense to me the most because once again, tie-in, like you said, realistic. Their relationship was realistic. It wasn't perfect. And I feel like this also gives room to let you know that finally they're focused on each other and they're going to make work because he was gone for a while, you know? And so for them to kind of all of a sudden jump into this rosy, happy marriage ending at the end would have probably been a bit too K-drama world for my liking. So I actually liked this ending because it gave room for them to also grow together in their relationship with no ex, lurking around and just focus on each other. And the dialogue at the end was also really nice. She was just like, whatever happens, happens, but I'm going to do me and we're going to be together. We're going to do what we can. And I liked it. I thought it was cool.
I like how that ending with them on the stairs echoes the Mount Hala scene.
Oh,
and how it draws it around again to that sometimes it's a climb, but we're going to do it together.
Yeah.
That's so astute.
Yeah.
I missed that. That's good.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I really like that. Yeah, and another thing was like during the breakup with Heejin, there's a line that just completely breaks my heart when Heejin is like, she's going to stop shining for you someday. And, you probably won't love her the same way. And so knowing this, are you still going to leave me? And he says, people knowing that they're going to die still continue to live. And
oh my gosh, I love that. See, if that was a moment to make me ever tear up during this show, that was probably one of that. That was nice. I like that.
Yeah, it was so powerful. It really...
Yes.
It really moved me. And there's one of our Twitter followers. I don't think she's actually listened to us yet, but we were asking people to quote from K-dramas, and she actually used that quote in Twitter, and I was like, yes.
Yeah, it's just something about it. I like it. It's beautiful. I like it.
I really like the ending, but let's talk a little bit about him deciding to go to America with Heejin.
Why? My God.
Okay, I'm trying to be charitable here, but I really don't get it. And then, you don't come back when you promised you were going to come back? You have to go find yourself?
Thank you so much for this.
I hated it because it felt like a tropey thing that they didn't subvert.
Yeah.
And it was just a straight up trope because, we have these separations in all these dramas.
Oh, yeah.
To this day.
A filler. That's what I like to call it, to be honest.
But somebody online said something that really shocked me and I had to really think about it, which is that Korea suffers from a cultural trauma around separations. Because of the Korean War. Yeah, because of the Korean War and also because of the Japanese invasion and also because of U.S. families adopting children and taking them out of the country. And so that's why you have constant references to big separations in K-dramas.
Does it have to be episode 15 or 16?
Yeah, I know. It's so ridiculous. Yeah. But I think that... Yeah, but I just think that's why I was like, oh, well, that's why I keep seeing this. It's super annoying, but you keep seeing it.
When the girl hid Henry, why did Sam Shik have to go with her to the U.S. too?
Oh my gosh, Melanie, you're making every point on why I was annoyed with
him. Fuck up, girl.
And then the thing with the postcards.
Oh gosh,
which was silly. I just got it.
Okay, and they also totally got me when he's the scene with Samson's mother, which I didn't realize that they were lying that she wasn't pregnant, but they go through that whole thing to win over her mother, and I'm like, wait, what? what? They're throwing a pregnancy twist in, like, what? And then of course at the end she's like, I'm trying to get pregnant. Like, I mean, it was crazy comedy in some of those, like the karaoke and whatever, but it was just, I don't know.
Yeah, it was wild. Catherine, you wanted to say something?
They bring up the pregnancy a second time too when they go to his mother, and she's like, okay, we'll see about this.
Yeah, I'll take you to my OBGYN and we'll check it out. Yeah.
I love that scene so much. That mom crap. Okay, let's find a good doctor tomorrow.
So actually, let's take a minute and talk about the secondary characters because they are so good in this. The universe of the show is very rich. You have the restaurant crew, you know, who are interesting because you have, well, first of all, the chef, the poor chef, who ends up becoming Samsun's sister's buddy. Ooh, I'm going to have to learn how to bleep on the show.
All of our faces. Whoa.
Her friend with benefits.
Her friend with benefits. Yes. Sorry.
Yeah.
Anyway, so the friend with benefits, and he keeps trying to turn it into a real relationship, and she is not interested. And they don't get together at the end. The typical thing would be that she falls in love with him in the end, and this time she was like, nope, all I want to do is go to motels with you occasionally, and that's it. Otherwise, don't bother me.
And you know, it makes sense because she's been divorced.
Right.
She doesn't want to get into that again.
Right.
But
Right.
she's still a woman.
Well, and the thing is, though, that's what I love about the drama, because she's so straightforward about it. And she, like, the whole family, he says something like, did the whole family eat a woodpecker? Why are you so loud? Because, you know, you have her who's like curses out the chef and is just basically like, no way, we're never having a relationship. I just want to go to bed with you. And then you have the mother, who was the mother in Coffee Prince, playing a completely 180 character. Because in Coffee Prince, she's the sweet, rich mommy and, you know, kind of passive, quiet. And then in this one, she like finds out about the dating contract and that Samsun did it for 50 million won. And she flips out because she sees it as being dirty and dishonorable, like Samsun is like a prostitute. And she has a point about that. And she races off to the restaurant, and she's like 4'11" or something. And she wrecks the place. Like, she starts hitting people, and she tries to punch out Hyun Bin, but she can't reach him because he's too tall. And then the woman in charge
comes
of the
by
restaurant.
it, honestly. Let's just say that she gets it straight from her
totally.
mom.
Yeah. And then the manager of the restaurant throws water on her and they have a fight. It was just a wild scene. But yeah, like all the women in that family just ferocious. Like another line from the chef is that it's like the family of gangsters. And I thought that was really funny too. Because they are so strong-willed. And so I really love that are so.
And as I mentioned, Hyun Bin's mother, and she could have been a character that you didn't sympathize with at all. And like I said, that one amazing scene with when she's telling Heejin, just leave my son and go back to America, and she's rejecting her just because she's like, I can't go through another loss again. It's not that I don't admire you, whatever, have feelings for you. It's just, I can't. I don't know. They've just had depth to almost every supporting character, which is something that's, I really love to see, because like you said, it's the whole universe. It's not just the main couple, it's the whole universe that you fall in love with.
Another thing I wanted to shout out about this was the soundtrack. What did you guys think of the soundtrack?
I love this soundtrack. I particularly like, I mentioned this to you guys, I particularly like the So You Suck's Beautiful Person, the folk song, and how it comes in the scene where they're at the piano, they're singing that, she's singing that to him, and then it comes in at the background as part of the soundtrack. But I love this, you've got Klajikwai with all this electro pop, and you've got jazz, and you've got Elvis Presley, and it's such an interesting mix. And I love the fact that these are people who, like, she's lived abroad, he's rich and he's been abroad, and they would have had a lot of the exposure to a lot of these things.
Yeah.
I love it.
I was just saying the fact that, the over the rainbow being such a key song to their relationship. And also, I think it also was the song that the little girl wanted the niece at the time. But yeah, it's English songs. And I love the fact, like Alisa mentioned, Hyun Bin is actually playing the piano. And then Samson, that's what one thing she learns to play the piano. Obviously, the actress herself can actually play. She learns to play the piano to play a song for him. I don't know, I just love that part of it, like having real music that the characters themselves are obsessed about as part of it.
I agree. I mean, I think some people might find the soundtrack to be a little dated because of the electronica music. I personally love it. I think it's very different from a typical K-drama OST.
Yeah, I also think it worked for the theme of the story in general, so it kind of made sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. I think it did. And to Over the Rainbow is about wanting to go to a beautiful place where there's no troubles, but you can't live there. Like Dorothy has to go back. And I think that's so, like, everything about this whole story just feels so well thought out. Like somebody really put the effort in to make these choices and everything builds the characters or plays on the themes. Like, we didn't touch on this too as much as we probably should have, but there's a book called Momo that plays a big part in this drama.
Yeah, it's a book by Michael Ende, who wrote The Neverending Story. He's probably much more famous for that, I think, than Momo. But it's really fascinating how they take some of the ideas. Like Momo is about time and memory in some ways. Momo is this little girl who, she's alone. She has nobody. And she shows up at this abandoned amphitheater in this town. And everyone kind of, she becomes a fixture in the town. And when they ask her, what is your name? She says, Momo. And somebody named you that. She says, I named myself that. So that's a name she chose for herself. The other thing that I love about Momo is Ende describes her as being the person who can solve other people's problems, and not because she's smart or smarter than other people, or not because she's, better at problem solving than other people. But what she does is she doesn't talk. She just listens. And there's an incident in the book that reminds me very much of what happens when the niece they're arguing, and that's the moment that the niece speaks. Because there's an incident in the Momo book where two men from the town are in this furious argument, and they go to Momo, and she says nothing, and all they do is argue. And at the end of it, they realize that there was a bit of a misunderstanding in what happened to them. And then it diffuses all the anger.
Right.
I love that. But it's also this story of how these men in gray arrive ostensibly as a time bank to get people to bank time with them, but they're really stealing time away from people. And Momo, along with a tortoise, because we see the tortoise in, I think, episode 15, Momo and the tortoise Cassiopeia and there's a professor of time have to defeat the men in gray and make people's time available to them in a way that allows them to live fulfilling lives. And the professor gives Momo a riddle about three brothers in a house, and it turns out that the three brothers are the past, the present, and the future, and you can't have one of them without the other two. But if you get stuck in one, you can't see the other brothers, and they live in this house of time. Like, I'm just blown away by how a writer can take those kinds of references and dot them through the story and make the whole thing meaningful.
Yeah, I mean, and just, like the people who wrote this, just the fact that they kept, the Momo thing kept coming up over and over again in the story. Like Hyun Bin buys the book for his niece, but then he buys a copy for himself and he's reading it. And then Samson sees him reading it. at one point. Yeah, so it's just really well done and so on point. And I love the fact that when Miju starts to speak again, it's in a moment of anger where she says, "I hate you, uncle." It's not a gooey-eyed, oh, she's learned to speak in a moment of love or whatever. It's because she's so angry at her uncle for the way he's behaving that, it's very on brand for the storytelling of this.
Yeah, very real feeling too.
Yeah.
So Catherine, you're our resident expert who's seen more dramas than any of us.
I start to be very hesitant about that.
Okay, but I was just going to say, this was my first experience with the actress Kim Sana. Have you seen another drama that you could recommend?
I have not seen her in another drama, and I was sitting here this week thinking this is a real oversight on my part.
I can recommend a drama with her in it though.
Okay,
Scent of a Woman.
Wait a minute, is this with Lee Dong-wook?
It is.
Oh my.
Lee Dong-wook fresh out of the army. And
I'm so surprised.
Good.
This is the one with that tango scene that I've seen the clip.
Correct. Yes. Okay. It's with the tango scene. I will say that it's a very flawed drama. But Kim Sana is amazing in it. She's plays a woman is diagnosed with cancer and has 6 months to live. And this is not a spoiler, that you learn this in the first episode. And then it's about how she's struggling to live a life knowing that her time is so constrained. And she is phenomenal in it. So she's one of these people who gains and loses weight. She lost so much weight that when she did promotions for the show, she refused to tell people how she did it because she didn't want anybody else to emulate what she had done to lose the weight. Lee Dong-wook, I will be honest, is the weak point of the story acting-wise. He looks amazing. He's gorgeous. They have chemistry, but his acting isn't really all that great. The second male lead is fantastic. The doctor character. Anyway, yeah, it's definitely worth checking out. You will cry. Lots of tears. Get your handkerchiefs ready.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
I can actually recommend something for Jung Ryeo-won though, who played Hee-jin, because I've seen her in a few things now, and I think she's quite interesting.
I like her.
Yeah, I do too.
I don't like the character, but I like her as an actress.
Yeah.
She did one. The drama is not wonderful. It's called King of Dramas. But if you've watched enough dramas, you might get a kick out of it because it's about a guy who is a drama producer and he's not quite ethical, and she's an aspiring screenwriter. And you'll see things like, what do we do if we get to the last episode and we have to do orange juice product placement? So there's a lot of stuff like that in it. But I think she's really good as this earnest and bubbly writer. There's another drama from the same year called History of a Salaryman, and her character is like right off the wall. She's the granddaughter of this rich family that has a pharmaceutical company. She's foul-mouthed. She's arrogant. She's just.
You're already selling me. You're selling me here.
It's a very, I don't want to say odd drama, but let's put it this way. I think it's her grandfather who runs the pharmaceutical company has a rooster in a handbag that's called Gold Jade. I mean, it's totally, there are things that are totally off the wall, but she's like terrific in it. And she can really do these kind of oddball characters. Like, I don't know if any of you saw Walk of Love. I was a little disappointed by that because I had really hoped.
I have.
Is it good, Vicky?
Yeah, I think she's.
I think it was okay.
Yeah,
I liked it for the most part, but it wasn't like, it wasn't her strongest, I would say, for both. But then again, the story wasn't, I mean.
I think she was the problem with that drama.
Yeah. It wasn't really,
But her character is a little offbeat.
Exactly.
So if you want to see an actress take, a number of different angles in different dramas, those are some that people can check out.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Excellent. So I think we probably all agree that this is a must-see drama with that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And, you know, I mean, there's so many people who have come to Hyunbin and then they're like, what else should we see next? And unfortunately, a lot of people they're starting out, they just have seen Crash Landing on You and Netflix, and that's all they have. And this is one of the ones, and Coffee Prince is another, where it's worth it to get the Viki subscription to watch some of these older dramas. You know, Memories of the Alhambra, I think, that's the other one that's on Netflix, but of Hyunbin's, but it has issues, right? We're all making faces.
Yeah.
But I think, like all of us, you watch an actor, you're really intrigued by him or her, and you want to see more things. And this is where, people ask, is it worth it to get a Viki subscription? And this is one of the reasons why, is to be able to watch some of these old gems, these classic K-dramas like Coffee Prince and like My Lovely Samson.
Yep.
If people are curious, I turned up this past week on Viki. So again, the plug for Viki. There is a very recent Thai remake of this. I'm half hesitant to mention it. I'm 3 episodes in, and I find it hugely problematic, and I don't think it has a lot of the charm of the original. But I'm completely hooked because the Samson character, who's called Busaba in Thai, is an expert at Thai cuisine.
Oh, that would be fascinating.
It is. So she moves in. She's hired to become eventually the chef at the hotel restaurant, but the food is amazing. And I'm only 3 episodes in, and because it's more modern, they're going to have her compete in one of these online chef battle shows. So I'm curious to see all the dishes. But the food in the last episode, she convinces the male lead's mother that she should be hired at the restaurant because she takes edible flowers from the hotel's garden, which she has been told are pesticide free, so they're safe to eat. And she makes a series of dishes with them. And it's like, wow.
Yeah.
It's no Samson, but the food is
okay.
So something to check out, but check this out first.
Yes.
So that's it for today. I'm so glad we got to talk about this. This is seriously, like, I love this drama so much. It's amazing. It's a humane, heart-touching story, and you guys should watch it. If you manage to get through this whole podcast and haven't seen it yet, you should go see it. So that's it for today. I just wanted to give everybody a chance to talk about where you can find us online and talk to us about things. So first of all, we have a Twitter account for the podcast, and it's at Daebak Podcast 1 on Twitter. My Twitter account is at Bollywood Newbie. And I'll turn it over to Melanie, where can people find you?
You can find me fangirling about Gong Yu on Twitter at Movie Maven Gal. But I'm also on YouTube reviewing Indian cinema on my channel called Pardesi.
You can find me at That Vicky Girl on both my Twitter and Instagram. The Vicky spelled with EY instead of just the Y at the end. And just like Melanie, I also review Indian cinema and K-pop and some other stuff every now and then on my YouTube channel. So, yeah.
And I'm at Kay Matthews, KayMatthews on Twitter. And my Indian film stuff is at totallyfilmy.com.
So that's it for this episode. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll be back soon with another classic drama. Take care.
Yay!
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.